So the Spy Llamas came back again today, and the Plasmatron 9000 was something that piqued my interest because it's another spy weapon that I'm yet to cover. Okay, so it seems like this entire video I'm going to call them spy weapons. I understand that they are sci-fi weapons. Just roll with it, okay? If you guys want me to cover any more of the spy weapons that I'm yet to cover on my channel, comment below, like those comments, and try to get those uploaded as much as possible, and the winner will be covered next time that I cover a spy weapon. But besides those videos, the Plasmatron 9000 is a bubblegun pistol that did really low damage upon first release, does really low damage now, has really short range, and a slow firing projectile that can pierce through enemies. At first glance, way back in the day, I thought that this weapon was complete garbage. It did so little damage, I was really unimpressed, but what I didn't understand was the potential of that pierce that I mentioned. So yes, you're going to need to lead your shots. Yes, you're not going to have a ton of range. Yes, this thing will function way better in crowds, and that's kind of the key. So its single target damage is actually pretty good. With a team of people and this loadout here, it actually did really well. You can do a lot better than this loadout, and I'll explain that later on, but what I used here worked really well for kind of like an average build. I didn't want to use Crackshot in the lead or Bulletstorm Jones in support because that is what we'll talk about later. So I went for something a little bit more middle of the road, and that did really well against some of the bigger targets. We use this in a max level zone as I usually do in my videos, and it performed really well, and I'm not surprised by that. This is a weapon that I've been eyeing for a very long time, and the key difference that I have experienced is, I think, fire rate, and that is the big difference from the day one times that I tried this out. A lot of people might want to run double crit damage on this. They might run a damage perk. I think the fire rate makes this weapon really usable, and that's kind of a big deal. Like, this is not a slower firing weapon that you want to be, praying for crits. They're not going to hit that hard. What you want to use with this weapon is a really fast fire rate that makes it honestly function more like an SMG than anything, because it's a fully auto pistol. It will chew through your energy cells, and most importantly, you'll never have to reload it if you do it properly. And that's where I want to get into that build, where if you run Crackshot in the lead, which ups your damage by 1% every single time, up to 50 stacks, and then I think it's 1 or 2.9% in the lead. Obviously, I've showed it on screen. You can see it now. It is very good. And then Bulletstorm Jonesy effectively does the exact same thing, but in support, and it works a little bit differently. I think Bulletstorm in the support, Crackshot in the lead, and then like Beetlejuice or Ranger Deadeye, all those different combinations are very good to run this loadout with. I don't know what the perfect hero loadout would be, but my focus here is the fact that because you don't have to reload this, you will be getting that 50 extra bullet damage bonus from Crackshot very easily, and so long as you don't switch off of this weapon, it will be an absolute powerhouse. Now, this is true with any heat capacity weapon where it doesn't use a proper mag size, but with this weapon, it definitely shines. So the best perks for this are kind of exactly what I've said. I think a crit build is okay because you have a base 15% chance to crit. You'll be critting fairly often. 43% is really good, especially with a 42% fire rate. You are going to be critting multiple times a second. And then the only thing that I think is pretty controversial here is the fact that I use heat capacity. So you could go damage on this. That would obviously up your damage by 30%. That'd be really good. And I don't like the idea of cooling rate because of what I mentioned. Heat capacity will allow you to shoot for longer without having to overheat. If you do end up overheating, this is effectively the same as a reload, by the way. So if you want to use the thick skeleton lady with the reload bonus, you can absolutely do that as well. Chromium Ramirez, I assume, would reduce that cooldown. I don't know if that works with these weapons, but it will break that bonus from Crackshot. So you definitely want to make sure that you're not going cooling rate with that kind of build and you're going heat capacity. It's basically like a mag size. That being said, because you can always stop shooting when it's about to overheat, you can of course go damage on this, and it would probably be the same thing. You'd just be able to shoot less bullets. Now, for the fire rate, that's kind of what I mentioned earlier. It really smoothens out the experience. I think it makes this a far more powerful weapon. You can go crit damage on this, but fire rate, crit rating, crit damage tends to be about 9% overall damage extra. I will show the math we did for a hemlock theoretical. So that's actually a fake hemlock, but it's basically, if the base damage was 100, you can see that it's 9% better in the fire rate section there. So you will be firing more bullets to achieve a higher damage per second, even though your damage per bullet will be a lot less. But that's kind of just semantics. I definitely prefer fire rate here, but you can go double crit damage if you want to have less DPS but higher damage per bullet. You can do a fire rate down here as well, depending if you want to save some perk up. You have a lot of great options here. And then, of course, you can go, crit rating down here. You can't really match to Afflicted or Slowed and Stare because you don't really have the option. If you don't like crit builds, you can absolutely go double damage on this. I see no problem with that. If you want to be an absolute lunatic, you can go double fire rate, but now you'll be shooting really fast with bullets that are doing very little damage. I would never recommend that, but fire rate double damage would be an absolutely perfectly fine way to go if you want to trust that every bullet will do the same amount. And on top of that, you can do what I mentioned earlier and just go triple damage instead of, triple damage fire rate instead of heat capacity. That's an absolutely good way to go there. So to break this down at the end, because I know some people get confused and I give multiple options, this is the build that I use and the one that I'll be sticking with. It's very well rounded in the fact that my heat capacity is very high. I can shoot longer without overheating. Fire rate will overheat your weapon faster, by the way, and I like the way that works. If you want the highest DPS, then fire rate damage, crit rating, crit damage would be the highest way to go. If you want to have the most consistent damage output, fire rate, triple damage would be certainly the way to go there. And then, of course, if you want to go highest damage per bullet, then crit damage, crit rating, damage would be the highest average damage per bullet. So when it comes to the Plasmatron 9000, you have a lot of options. This thing is really, really fun to use. I really, really like this weapon. If it had, you know, faster projectile speed, where like it was kind of like a laser beam in front of you, I would definitely use this more often, but it's kind of tricky to use and tough to maneuver around. I did notice that in those highest zones encampments, this thing absolutely shreds crowds of enemies. It is really, really good. That Pierce is absolutely where this thing gets its claim to fame, and for that reason, I think it's actually one of the top tier weapons in the game. As per usual, the Sci Fi weapons are all pretty good in this game, and if you haven't used any of them, I'd highly recommend trying out literally any Sci Fi weapon. Throw a rock, you're going to hit a good weapon from the set, and the Plasmatron does not disappoint. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys want to support me, feel free to use code Mista to check out. Become a channel member if you want to support the channel. You get lots of bonuses. You can see them right there. Like the video if you liked it, dislike if you disliked it, subscribe if you're new. Hope you guys enjoyed, and thanks for watching. And then